Hello and welcome to English for Philosophy students. We are studying Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. We are in lesson 38 of that book. And we are in lesson number 7 of rule number 5. Never let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. Today we are going to look at something very politically charged. The issue of discipline and punishment. Let's read. Modern parents are terrified of two frequently juxtaposed words: discipline and punish. They evoke images of prisons, soldiers, and jackboots. The distance between disciplinarian and tyrant, or punishment and torture, is indeed easily traversed. Discipline and punish must be handled with care. The fear is unsurprising, but both are necessary. They can be applied unconsciously or consciously, badly or well, but there is no escaping, their use. No escaping their use. Let's go back and clarify a few things. First of all, modern parents are terrified. They are very afraid of discipline and punishment. Okay. Two frequently juxtaposed words. To juxtapose means to put them side by side and compare them. Actually, in my experience, people don't juxtapose these words. They actually conflate them. They actually use them interchangeably, as though they meant the same thing. To discipline is to punish. I'm going to discipline you by spanking or something. Really, the two words have different meanings. Discipline means to train. Like a disciple is someone who is learning from you. To discipline your children can be both positive and negative. You can train them using rewards as well as punishments. So discipline does not mean punishment. Punishment means to do something painful to the child, either emotionally painful or physically painful, in order to teach the child not to do something bad. So the child has done something bad, then they get punished. That is one way to teach, to discipline, to train a child not to do bad things. But punish is only negative. Discipline is positive and negative, but discipline is positive because it is for the purpose of training. Even if it uses punishment, the process is fundamentally positive. But people conflate discipline and punishment, and they make discipline illegal because of fear of excessive punishment. Okay, so two words, discipline and punish. These words, they, means these two words, evoke images of prisons, soldiers, and jackboots. So when a person hears the word discipline or the word punishment, he thinks of prison and soldiers and cruelty. And jackboots are heavy boots that soldiers will kick you with or stomp on your hand. Jackboots. The distance between disciplinarian and tyrant. Okay? A disciplinarian is a person who, generally, the connotation is someone who's very strict and uses a lot of punishment. And disciplinarian is different from the word discipline in that disciplinarian is usually negative. Usually it means someone who uses a lot and maybe too much punishment. So the distance between a disciplinarian and a tyrant is easily traversed. So the distance is easily traversed. That means you can quickly go from being a disciplinarian to being a tyrant. The two are similar enough that it is easy to become a tyrant if you are a disciplinarian. Same thing with the distance between punishment and torture is easily traversed. So when you are punishing someone, it is easy to go too far and get to the point that you are torturing them. They are close. And if they are close, they can become one another. This is why society is so afraid of punishment, because the difference between punishment and torture is very small. Also, in our society, we are afraid of any sort of mild punishment. In America, we say it is cruel and unusual punishment to make a prisoner be in a jail cell with only a black and white TV, not color. I have heard it said this is excessive punishment. So our culture, my culture in the United States, we don't want any punishment at all. So truly, the difference between punishment and what my culture says is torture is like no distance at all to traverse. So, discipline and punish must be handled with care. I think he means, he's got both of these words in italic print. I think he means discipline as a reality and basically punishment, I think is what he means. The concept of punishment, the concept of discipline must be handled with care. Any use of discipline, any use of punishment must be handled with care. The fear is unsurprising. We are not surprised that people are afraid. But both discipline and punishment are necessary. They can be applied unconsciously or consciously. So you can punish your child unconsciously. If you allow your child to do things that make you dislike him, then you will begin to turn away from him, to sneer and to frown. Sneer is like, ugh, and frown. You will begin to react with anger and disdain towards your child. All of this is a form of punishment. You think, oh, I am virtuous. I have never hit my child. I never punish my children. But unconsciously, you might do terrible things to the child emotionally. Punishment can be done unconsciously, or it can be done consciously. You may think, that little brat, I'm going to leave him alone. You can do it consciously. Of course, you can also do it consciously. Well, moving on, it can be done badly or well. So it is bad to just say, I'm going to leave that little brat alone. But it could be good to say, Junior, what you are doing is unacceptable. Now you must go alone to your room for half an hour. See, that is in both ways. You are leaving the child into social isolation as a punishment. But in one case, you are doing it well. You are explaining why he is being isolated and for how long. Whereas in the first case, I'm going to leave him alone, the child will be tortured by fear and confusion. Why doesn't mommy love me anymore? So it can be done badly or well. But there is no escaping its use. Meaning there is no escaping the fact that you will punish your child, whether you want to or not. You can say, I am virtuous. I never hit my child. But it is not true that you do not punish. You punish by your very reaction to the child. So it is better to do it consciously and well. Let us move on. It's not that it's impossible to discipline with reward. In fact, rewarding good behavior can be very effective. The most famous of all behavioral psychologists, B.F. Skinner, was a great advocate of this approach. He was expert at it. He taught pigeons to play ping pong, although they only rolled the ball back and forth by pecking it with their beaks. But they were pigeons, so even though they played badly, it was still pretty good. Skinner even taught his birds to pilot missiles during the Second World War in Project Pigeon, later Orcon. He got a long way before the invention of electronic guidance systems rendered his efforts obsolete. Okay. It's not that it is impossible. This it's is the same as it is. So it is not that it's impossible to discipline with reward. In fact, rewarding good behavior can be very effective, an effective form of discipline. The most famous of all behavioral psychologists, B.F. Skinner, was a great advocate of the approach of using reward to shape behavior, which is the same as to say, to discipline. He was an expert at it. He taught pigeons to play ping pong. You know ping pong, a game where you you bounce a ball across a table. Although meaning something different, he taught them to play, but not really. They only rolled the ball back and forth by pecking it with their beak. Usually you use a ping pong paddle. But they were pigeons, meaning they were only pigeons. They were not people. So, even though they played badly, it was still pretty good. Skinner even taught his birds to pilot missiles during the Second World War in Project Pigeon, later Orcon. He got a long way before the invention of electronic guidance systems rendered his efforts obsolete. So his work was superseded by electronic guidance systems. The point of this whole paragraph is simply that it is possible to discipline very effectively with reward. That's the whole main idea. It is possible to discipline using rewards. The thing with Skinner is support. You can teach pigeons using only rewards. I'm going to highlight. It is possible to discipline with reward. That's the main idea. I have a bad cough that won't go away. Next paragraph. Skinner observed the animals. Hold on. Come on. Okay, good. Skinner observed the animals he was training to perform such acts with exceptional care. So he observed them with exceptional care. Okay, that's exceptional care modifies how did he observe them. Any actions that approximated what he was aiming at were immediately followed by a reward of just the right size, not small enough to be inconsequential, and not so large that it devalued future rewards. Such an approach can be used with children and works very well. I would like to stop there and tell you my experience with children is that this is very key. Most mothers use rewards that are much too great, and then it devalues future rewards. We have in our house a bag of mini M&Ms. They are very small chocolate candies with a colorful coating. Regular M&Ms are small, but mini ones are maybe 2 millimeters in diameter. They are very, very small. I often use those for small rewards when there will be many small rewards. For example, this morning, the children and I had the children sitting at the table, and I played a song of music on the radio and then asked them questions about the content. Any child who got something right got one little M&M to eat. It was just a little thumbs up for them, one little M&M. If I had given a huge chocolate bunny the first time someone answered a question, he would not have listened to any more songs because one chocolate bunny is enough. So, small rewards that are enough to motivate, but not enough to satiate so that they don't care about future. Okay. Imagine, okay, so now he is going to go and give you his example of this. I just gave you my example. Imagine that you would like your toddler. A toddler is maybe a 2-year-old child, maybe 2. They learn to walk when they are 1, and at age 2, they are pretty good. They can walk and run, but they fall down a lot, and they don't really talk yet too much. Your toddlers toddle. You want your toddler to help set the table. That means prepare for dinner by putting out plates and silverware and napkins and drinks. Set the table. It's a useful skill. You'd like him better if he could do it. This is you would. You would like your child better if he could set the table. It would be good for his shudder self-esteem. Shudder is this. Ooh. The reason he writes shudder before saying the word self-esteem is because in our culture, self-esteem is it's misused. We eliminate all competition in the schools so that no child has to lose or fail to win because his self-esteem will be hurt. Self-esteem is like pride, and we try to give children pride without achievement in our culture, and it is such a terrible, terrible thing. We tell each child they are special, so then no child is special for self-esteem. So it would be good for his self-esteem. Actually, self-esteem is important, but it must be based on solid achievement. If a child can actually do a job that helps the family, he will feel good about himself and he will have a stronger self-esteem. It's good for his character development to base his self-esteem on competence, the ability to do something. So that is a firm base for healthy self-esteem, not just being told you are special. So to teach the child how to set the table would be good for his self-esteem. So you break the target behavior down. So this phrase, break down, is a phrasal word. You could say, I want to break down the target behavior. But we often put the object in the middle. We separate phrasal verbs and put the object in the middle. So you break the target behavior down. Break down the target behavior. Target behavior is the behavior you are trying to teach. Break it down, analyze it into its component parts. One element of setting the table is carrying a plate from the cupboard. We say this word cupboard, not cupboard, cupboard, to the table. Even that might be too complex for a small child. Perhaps your child has only been walking a few months. He's still wobbly, and unreliable. You cannot rely upon him. So, you start his training by handing him a plate and having him hand it back. Give him the plate and then ask him to give it back. A pat on the head could follow. That is a small reward. Pat on the head, thumbs up, good job. Once I was sitting in my house and one of the grandchildren was sitting on the floor on the other side of the room playing with water, and every time she picked up and poured some water, she said, "Great job! That was great." Then she did it again. "Great job! That was great." She was practicing what she was hearing. Someone said in her hearing, "Great job! That was great," to her or to one of her siblings. And she was learning this. That is the kind of reward that is a small reward that builds self-esteem and is healthy. So, also a pat on the head could follow the good behavior. You might turn it into a game. I often turn training into games. Often. The other day, I'm trying to make this work. Sorry. The other day, I was at dinner with Olavo, and it was a family gathering where his daughter Inez and her 5 children and husband were visiting, and we were all having dinner at a restaurant. And when the children came in, they walked up to me and said their name. They looked at me in the eye and they said, "Nice to meet you." "Nice to meet you too," if I said something to them. I was so charmed by those children that I went home later and the next day and I made a game with my grandchildren. I took their hand and said, "Nice to meet you." And then they said, "Nice to meet you too." We were just playing. But I was teaching them how to have a charming skill of meeting people politely. You can make it a game. This thing is really annoying me. Okay, let's see. How do I make this work? Which way did we want to go? We want to go this way. So we are making it a game. Pass with your left. So pass means pass the plate with your left. Switch to your right. Circle around your back. Then give the plate and take a few steps back. So he has to walk. So he has to traverse a few steps before giving it back. Train him to become a plate handling virtuoso. Don't leave him trapped in his klutzdom. If you are a klutz, you are a person who is very uncoordinated. You fall, you drop things, you break things. That is what it is to be a klutz. To add dumb as a suffix makes the word into something like a geographical area, like a kingdom is the geographical area governed by the king. So your klutzdom is the place you live as a klutz. Don't trap him in being a klutz. This is just an example of how versatile English is. Jordan Peterson made this up, this unity between klutz and dumb. It's not common, but you can put a lot of words together in English creatively, and this is an example. So the main idea of this paragraph is, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, hold on. Basically, this is it. It takes a lot of work, training to use rewards. It's all about the reality of how to use rewards and how much work it takes. He is giving an example with setting the table of breaking it into many parts and then making a game of one small part in order to show you that using rewards to discipline requires a lot of energy, a lot of creativity, a lot of time and attention. This is the reality of what it takes to discipline using rewards. So this is the main idea, how to discipline with rewards. All right. You can teach virtually anyone anything with such an approach. Virtually anyone. For example, you could teach people who are mentally retarded. You can teach a pigeon. You could teach rats. You could teach a dog. You can teach anyone anything with such a method by breaking it down to very simple parts and teaching the very simple parts one by one and then putting them together. First, figure out what you want. Then, let me say something about this. This is what the parents are not doing. They do not stop and think, what do I want my child to do? They simply let the child start and then they say, no, 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 what's the matter with you? Why did you do that? That's bad. Whereas a little bit of thought, a little bit of instruction, and the child would have done the right thing. I have told you in the past, key to our training of our children is to think ahead of the situation we are moving into and then tell the children what to do, what is expected. So if you're going into a restaurant, you must stand until the lady tells you, please follow me. Then you quietly follow until she indicates the table, and then you sit down, put your hands in your lap, and wait for mommy to ask you what you would like to eat. If you tell your children that, they will not go in and start running around the restaurant looking at everything and talking to people and touching the glass walls. So, this is very important. Figure out what you want them to do. Then, watch the people around you like a hawk. Finally, whenever you see anything a bit more like what you want, swoop in, hawk-like, remember, and deliver a reward. Okay, so what he is talking about is actually pretty different from what I'm talking about. He is talking about pure training with rewards, not instructing as I do. We instruct verbally. We tell the child what to do. We do not just wait for the child to randomly happen to do what I want and then give him an M&M. I actually know some people who do it that way. One of my sons is married to a woman who does it that way. She doesn't tell her child what to do. She waits for him to do it and then rewards it. He is a small child, but it's a disaster, believe me. Anyway, okay. So he is saying, wait, watch. When they do what you like, reward it. Here is an example, his example. Your daughter has been very reserved, meaning she doesn't talk a lot to you, since she became a teenager. You become a teenager at the age of 13, 14, 15, on up through 19. These are the teenage years. You wish she would talk more. That's the target. More communicative daughter. So you want to encourage communication. One morning, over breakfast, she shares an anecdote about school. So she is talking to you. That's an excellent time to pay attention. Give attention. The attention is the reward. That's the reward. Stop texting and listen to your daughter. Unless you don't want her to tell you anything ever again. If you don't want her to communicate, continue texting. And she will never communicate with you again. She will ignore you. So, that's what unless. This means if you don't want the good behavior, then do then don't reward it. So this paragraph, the main idea is how to reward with, how to discipline with rewards in a pure sense. Watch, give a reward. Parental interventions that make children happy clearly can and should be used to shape behavior. So a parental intervention that makes a child happy is to listen to her. Okay, that's the idea. Having positive interactions. They should be used to shape behavior. That is a good reward. The same goes for husbands, wives, co-workers, and parents. If you like what they're doing, listen to them, smile at them, give them positive, rewarding interaction. Skinner, B.F. Skinner, the psychologist, however, was a realist. He noted that use of reward was very difficult. The observer had to attend patiently, give attention patiently, until the target, the pigeon, the child, spontaneously manifested the desired behavior. So the pigeon just so happened to touch the ball with his beak. And then he had to reinforce that behavior with a reward. It's time intensive. It is difficult. This required a lot of time. This required a lot of time and a lot of waiting, and that's a problem. It's a problem with the reward-only approach that my daughter-in-law uses. It makes me crazy. Crazy. I'm telling you, it makes me crazy. He, meaning B.F. Skinner, also had to starve his animals down to 3/4 of their normal body weight before they would become interested enough in a food reward to truly pay attention. That's bad. If you have to starve your child in order to make them interested in the M&M they're going to get for answering a question. But these are not the only shortcomings of the purely positive approach. So, this is a transition. These are not the only shortcomings. A shortcoming is a negative aspect. So the negative aspects that have been listed already are it's difficult to use reward only, and it takes time, it takes attention, it's easy to make a mistake in the level of the reward, and sometimes you have to incentivize the reward by starving the child or something. These are all negative, but there are more negatives. These are not the only shortcomings of the purely positive approach. It's called positive parenting. So we expect the next paragraph to give some other reason why reward only is negative. Let's see what we get. Okay, let's look at this paragraph. I need a new color. Let's do red. Negative emotions, like their positive counterparts, help us to learn. So negative emotions and positive emotions can help us learn. We need to learn because we're stupid and easily damaged. We need to learn in order to live. If we do not learn that the stove is hot, we will burn ourselves and we will die of infection. We must learn and stay away from the fire. We must learn in order to live. We can die, meaning we are vulnerable. And that's not good. And we don't feel good about it, meaning about dying. If we did feel good about dying, we would seek death, and then we would die. We don't even feel good about dying if it only might happen. And that's all the time. He is being somewhat facetious here. This is not deep. Let's move on. He's basically saying we need to learn or we will die. Period. In that manner, negative emotions, for all their unpleasantness, protect us. We feel hurt and scared and ashamed and disgusted so that we can avoid damage. These emotions cause us to move away from things that would hurt us more. And we are susceptible, meaning we are vulnerable, to feeling such things a lot. In fact, meaning more evidence, we feel more negative about a loss of a given size than we feel good about the same size gain. What he is saying is, if you give me $100, I'll feel good. But if in the course of my life I lose $100, I'll feel worse. It is more negative to lose $100 than to receive it. It is positive. You feel this good to receive it. You feel this bad to lose it. We are more sensitive to negative loss than we are to positive gain emotionally. That is something that psychological experiment has demonstrated. Pain is more potent than pleasure, and anxiety more than hope. Potent, that means intense, strongly felt. So we feel pain more than we feel pleasure. We feel anxiety more strongly than hope. You can have hope and not even know it. But if you have anxiety, it really has a big effect. So the main idea in this paragraph is that negative emotions are very important and key in human experience. They protect us from bad stuff so that we can avoid damage, and they are felt more potently than the positives. So, emotions, positive and negative, come in two usefully different variants. Satisfaction, technically satiation, tells us that what we did was good, while hope, technically incentive reward, indicates that something pleasurable is on the way, meaning coming. Pain hurts us, so we won't repeat actions that produce personal damage, or social isolation, as loneliness is also technically a form of pain. Anxiety makes us stay away from hurtful people and bad places so we don't have to feel pain. All these emotions must be balanced against each other and carefully judged in context, but they're all required to keep us alive and thriving. Let me go back and make sure you've understood. Emotions, positive and negative, come in two usefully differentiated variants. We have satisfaction and hope. Satisfaction is in the present and it says something is good. Hope is future oriented and keeps us pursuing a good. Pain and anxiety. Pain is in the present, and it tells us to not repeat an action that hurt us. Anxiety is future-oriented. It is a fear that a future action might produce pain, therefore I will stay away. So the future-oriented one is protective in the negative, and the present-oriented one is instructive. And for the positive, satisfaction is instructive. This is good. Hope is an incentive to keep moving. So we have the two levels of positive, two levels of negative. And we, therefore, do our children a disservice. So we do something bad for them. We do not do good to our children if we fail to use whatever is available to help them learn, including negative emotions, even though such use should occur in the most merciful manner possible. So the main idea here, and we are going to end with this, is that we must serve our children by being the most efficient and effective in training them. And use of positive incentives and negative reinforcements for good and bad behaviors, negative punishments are both a part of it. And we must use the negative ones mercifully, but effectively, like a doctor who has to do an operation. He is going to cut open someone and fix their internal organs. He will be as careful as possible to do small amount of damage. But he will do what is necessary to correct the problem. So parental discipline can be that way. So that's it for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Not tomorrow. Next week. See you later.